You're listening to the Quintessential Podcast, the official podcast of the Quinn Group. Join us as we discuss the latest in legal, accounting, and mergers and acquisitions, helping to provide you with the total solution. Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 5 of the Quintessential Podcast. Last time we spoke at length with our director and co-founder of the Quinn Group, Michael Quinn, about his new book, The Definitive Guide to Starting a Business in Australia. In our last episode, we spoke about setting up your business, the steps you need to take prior to starting your business, why overseas residents should consider starting a business in Australia, and the key business registrations for tax purposes. So Michael, let's get right into it again today. Let's talk about the legal aspect of things. And how about we start with, say, intellectual property, which I believe is Chapter 6 of your book.
So yes, small business owners, they generally have little time to think about anything but the day-to-day running of their business.
Of course, yeah.
And that can be extremely time-consuming, keeping abreast of and complying with the legal requirement of protecting your intellectual property is not something that immediately comes to hand with most new business owners. So it's important to think about this intellectual property and how to protect it. And intellectual property comes in various forms. It can include patents, it can include copyright, it can include trademarks.
Sure.
And for plant breeders, it can include plant breeders' rights, and it can also include various designs.
Sure.
Okay.
So why don't we go a little bit more in depth into what these aspects are? So why don't we just talk about patents and trademarks to start with?
Okay. So a patent is a right that's granted for any device, substance, method or process that is new, inventive and useful.
All right. So like the light bulb?
Yes, it protects the use of ideas or information either in products or processes, a light bulb being a product. Mm-hmm. Patents give effective protection if you've invented new technology that will need to lead to a product, composition or process with significant long-term commercial gain. Now, you may not know whether your product is going to have significant long-term commercial gain, but that's what you're hoping will happen.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why you need to make sure that your patent is protected by being properly registered.
Yeah.
A trademark, on the other hand, it's like a sign. It's like a name, word, or logo that businesses use to identify themselves and the goods and services they provide.
Yep.
The difference between trademarks, business, company, and domain names sometimes causes confusion.
Sure.
Registration of a business, company, or domain name does not, in itself, give you any proprietary rights. Only a trademark does. So the registration of a trademark gives the registered owner exclusive use of the trademark throughout Australia. It's legally enforceable and gives you exclusive rights to commercially use, license, or sell it for the goods and services that it is registered under.
So essentially, these are some very important things you should be considering.
Oh, most definitely, because as I say, if you're looking at eventually selling this business, you're wanting to sell the business with intellectual property, and that intellectual property should be properly registered.
Yeah.
So your intellectual property can be things like your trademark, your patent, your design, your domain name, your website, and your database of clients. Mm-hmm. So they all add to the goodwill value of your business when you eventually want to sell it.
Well, intellectual property certainly is a very important consideration, Michael. Thank you. So, we've talked about the legal aspects, the taxation registrations required for starting a business. Now let's get into the accounting realm of things.
Well, that's very much where Isabel, the Quinn Group, can help, because we've got bookkeepers and accountants on staff, and oftentimes a person either within Australia or overseas wanting to set up business in Australia will want to know about how they manage their finances, and they will have certain technical expertise but not necessarily financial expertise.
Sure.
And the finance side of things is so important. Proper systems and procedures, especially finance systems and procedures, need to be set up from day one to ensure that a business owner knows what profit or loss they are generating, needs to record their assets and liabilities in a balance sheet, and needs to monitor their cash flow, because as we said, cash flow in these times is king. A business can be profitable, but if it doesn't have continuous cash flow, it can still end up going into insolvency. So this setting up of proper bookkeeping systems and procedures from day one is very, very important. And what I do in our book is I go through some basic terminology to do with accounting for businesses. I explain what financial reports are, being the balance sheet and the profit and loss account. I explain the issue with accounting comprising assets, liabilities and net worth, what current assets are, what current liabilities are, what long-term assets or fixed assets are, and what long-term liabilities are, and what net worth or equity means in a business. The other thing that's important to understand from a finance point of view is the terms margin versus markup, because they're completely separate terms, and a lot of business owners get these terms mixed up.
Oh no, that's no good.
Well, it can have huge repercussions because they can think that they're working on a 50% margin, whereas in fact they're working on a 50% markup, which equates to a 33% margin. And in terms of financing, that can result in turning a profit into a loss.
Sure. So Michael, let's now discuss one of your chapters in your book I found quite interesting was record keeping for businesses and bookkeeping systems.
Yes, it is, Isabel. So once again, when you're setting up a business, you have to keep proper business records, and they're required by the various entities in Australia, the various legal entities in Australia. So record keeping is very important in setting up a business in Australia. Why? Because there are certain records that must be kept to comply with the Australian Taxation Office. And those records, whilst they can be kept electronically or in paper form, they must be kept for a period of time, and that period of time is generally either 5 or 7 years, depending on the entity and depending on whether the entity employs staff or not. There's certain sales records that have to be kept. There are certain purchase records and expense records that need to be kept. There is year-end income tax records. If you have employees, payments to employees that need to be kept. PAYG withholding, which is tax on salaries and wages for employees, those records need to be kept. And if you're applying as certain businesses such as freight companies, transport businesses and logistics businesses, if you're applying for fuel tax credits, those fuel tax credit records need to be kept as well.
Of course. So it's good to have a system in place, and I guess we delve into this deeper in the book, so
we do.
It's good.
We do. And we also provide a checklist in the book of the legal requirements for the keeping of business records and what the retention period is, and as I say, that can vary anywhere from 5 years through to 7 years.
Yep.
So it's very, very important.
Sure. Well, we might wrap it up there today for the Quintessential Podcast, Episode 5. If you'd like more information about the Quinn Group's latest book, The Definitive Guide to Starting a Business in Australia, please email us at info@quinns.com.au or call us on 1300 Quinns.
And obviously, if you're looking at starting a new business in Australia, whether you be from within Australia or overseas, please get in contact. We'd love to help in that regard.